Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Historical Humans podcast. My name is Justin Woods, and I'm joined today by my fellow co-hosts Colum Coleman and Aaron Gilpin. And today we are going to the Mediterranean. We're going a bit warmer temperatures. We're going to be visiting the Emirate of Sicily. Ooh.
Yes, the Emirate of Sicily. It's a topic really wanted to do here on historical humans because it was it's a Muslim emirate, as all emirates actually were in Sicily. But when we talk about Islam in Europe, we usually find ourselves talking about the Moors in Spain or the Ottomans in the Balkans. But very rarely do we talk about what happened in Sicily, because Sicily is, for over a century, a territory of the Muslim-speaking world. And, Islamic world is a lot of different ways of saying it, but you get what I'm saying, hopefully. And so,
Nah, just keep digging. Just keep going.
yeah, no, I'm gonna keep, yeah, don't worry. So to take us into it, the Emirate of Sicily, it is founded in about 950 and lasts till 1091. But in order to understand what happens and how we get to this entire hereditary emirate over in the Mediterranean, we have to actually wind the clock all the way back to the year 812. The year 812 is where we see Byzantium in control of most of Sicily. And they decide to make a wonderfully stupid move, the first of many.
Picking a fight with a Sicilian when death's on the line?
Messing with the Italian mob?
Even worse, the Byzantine strategos, which is sort of the provincial governor that the Byzantines set up for various regions, decides to break a treaty with the Emirate of Tunisia. The treaty was signed in 805, and part of the treaty involved the return of Muslim prisoners that had been taken during previous conflicts. Constantine Sudas, the Byzantine strategos in Sicily, does not want to give up his prisoners and thus refuses, thereby breaking the treaty and prompting one Ibrahim I of Tunisia to launch an invasion of Sicily.
Wait, why did he not want to just give them up? Like, did he thought they were too valuable politically?
I would also assume potentially that prisoners were also used for labor.
I don't think it was those kinds of prisoners.
No, this was not a enslaved prisoner type situation, so much as Sicily is, during the 9th century, having a very hard time acknowledging the supremacy of Constantinople. It spends a lot of its time basically doing its own thing, knowing that it is on the edge of the empire and the emperor can do pretty much nothing to stop them.
That's so funny to me because it's like it's not even that far. Like, here's Sicily, here's Constantinople.
Well, what you have
just
to
an
keep
ocean across.
What you have to keep in mind. What you have to keep in mind is that when the Byzantines do their whole reconquest of Italy, they lose almost all of it instantly.
Yeah,
the Byzantine ability to project power into the Mediterranean is incredibly limited, and most of the Constantinople's resources are focused on holding Anatolia and the Balkans.
I mean, yeah, that's fair.
So this is basically Roman Britain. It's a rogue province that answers to you in name only. And the various Byzantine emperors are struggling to control Sicily. This will be a theme for everyone who follows. But yes, Ibrahim I of Tunisia invades Sicily over these prisoners in 812, and it's the first sign that this Emirate of Tunisia is going to be a powerhouse, that the Muslims and the Arabic-speaking world are going to be a power in the central Mediterranean, that they are a power in North Africa. Because Ibrahim, he's the founder of the Alghabid dynasty of Tunisia. He's the founder of the Emirate of Tunisia, then known as Ifriqiya by the Muslims. Ibrahim gets the emirate by appointment from the Caliph Harun al-Rashid, who is himself a mighty war caliph, who participates in a number of crusades, actually fighting against a lot of people. Harun al-Rashid, there's a lot of people who get named after this man, and they go to a lot of crusades.
I thought the Crusades weren't until the
Crusades are there, but like people get named after this one.
Oh, fair.
People get named after this one. Heirs become crusaders, all this stuff. People get named after this man because
because this is the around the time of the expansion.
He is responsible. This one in particular is responsible for basically prior to him, the Muslim world ended in Egypt.
Oh, so he's the one who
takes
helped.
all of North Africa.
Okay.
And he appoints the son of his Khorasanian or Iranian general, Ibrahim here, to rule sort of the middle part of the lands he's took as a hereditary emirate, which basically means you're your own country, but you technically owe vassalage to me.
Kind of like a client state system.
Yeah, more or less, because the way the Muslim world works is you have one caliph who is the head of the entire Islamic world, and answerable to him are all the other political entities that claim to be Muslim states.
It's also just an easier way when you control large tracts of land to just like delegate control and power of like, yeah, just pay homage to me. I'm above you guys and just make sure we're up there.
Yeah, it's kind of the Byzantine arrangement in Sicily is what's going on, except the caliphate is actually able to keep its emirates in line. So Ibrahim, he comes out of the war fairly successful. He's able to recapture the prisoners that he wanted back in the first place and sails home. He's unable to take Sicily. However, he's not quite done with it. Although Ibrahim himself will not be returning to Sicily, a number of his successors do. Because the year 826 is a thing.
Not the year 826.
Yeah.
Aaron, what happened in 826?
I think it's has to do with the commander of the Byzantine fleet at Sicily rebelling against Emperor Michael II.
Yeah, the Byzantine navy goes into full and open revolt in Sicily.
Oh no!
How do you lose the navy?
Well, here's what happened. So Michael II is emperor of the Byzantine empire, and he encounters a rather interesting problem. See, there's a man who's in command of his military at Sicily called Euthemius. Euthemius is not someone you should ever give command to. Because Euthemius decides, in violation of both Byzantine secular law and every holy law in existence, tries to abduct a nun and force her to marry him.
Oh, no. Oh. Is he where we get the term euthanize from?
No. No, I do not believe it is from him, because his story does not end that way.
I wish it did. This is getting fucked up.
Yeah, how do you force a nun to marry you?
Well, it's simple. You abduct her from the nunnery and basically hold a wedding without her consent.
The nunnery.
Then you consummate said wedding against her will.
I don't think that counts.
Thereby preventing her from ever being a nun again.
I think that doesn't count.
This plot is stopped by you might remember a man, Constantine Pseudos. He's still around.
Did he say? Did they get to the part where it was who objects and then he
I do.
Well, it's just like she doesn't object, and then he just barges in and goes, "I object."
So he is not able to get his hands on the nun. However, news reaches the emperor. The emperor orders Constantine to arrest Euthemius for effectively committing blasphemy and treason in one stroke. Euthemius, who has the loyalty of the navy, says, "In that case, I don't answer to you. I'm king of Sicily."
Oh. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it pays off.
And he wipes out the army of Constantine.
Oh, god damn it.
Wow.
He takes out the strategos, declares himself king of Sicily, and then we have two brothers, cousins, who he puts in charge of like governing Sicily under him, named Balta and Michael of Palermo. They don't like Euthemius that much.
Understandable.
Can't imagine why.
And they've really only gone along with him so far because he has the navy. Soon as they get established in positions of power under him, they immediately rebel and kick him out of Sicily. And Euthemius flees to Tunisia, where he promises the Algebiads will have Sicily if they let him rule it as their vassal.
Ooh, sucking up to a powerful...
Yep.
ally.
Now, the final agreement is that Euthemius pays the Algebids an annual tribute, and the Algebids put Euthemius on his throne in Syracuse. This does not necessarily happen, but it prompts some absolute Chad moves from the Muslim quarter.
Oh, no.
As you're going to meet what is probably our favorite man throughout the night, Justin Aaron, because in 827 and 828, the Muslim forces launch and land in Sicily under the command of Asad ibn al-Farrat, a man who is 70 when he sets foot in Sicily.
Oh no, the grandpa's leading the soldiers.
Oh, is this? God damn!
Did he bring his walker with him?
He's the silver fox to end them all. He wins the Battle of Mazara. He takes Syracuse by siege, and he is more or less seen as unstoppable.
Wait, is that the infamous siege of Syracuse?
No, you're thinking of the Roman one.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is not the infamous siege of Syracuse. Those Syracuse
Not the one with
a
what's his
lot.
name? What was his name again? Started with an A.
Oh, Archimedes?
Yeah. Archimedes.
Archimedes.
Yeah, is that the one you're thinking of?
Yeah, because that
Yeah,
was shown in the new Indiana Jones.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
You're about,
I should probably watch that.
You're about 1,100 years too late.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is like
This is Syracuse has been taken by siege several times since. They have not learned. Anyway,
So this Chad of an old man just is like, I don't need a walker. I've got swords, and just
ships.
walks into the battlefield, and then just takes.
Yeah. Assad proves himself to still be a fully viable military commander in every respect. However, God has some things to say about this. And a plague sweeps through the Muslim camp. Assad.
Oh.
He goes down. And that's when things really take a turn. Because Euthemius then dies in a failed attack on Castro Giovanni. So, with no claimant and no general, the Muslim advance is stalled for a couple years, though they have a foothold that the Byzantines can't really dislodge them on account of the Byzantine navy being gone and the Byzantine strategos being dead. There's not really a good defense here. The Muslims return in 830 with reinforcements from North Africa and Andalusia, which I was surprised to learn was a real place.
Oh yeah, it's southern Spain, also kind of known as Al Andalus.
Yeah. I'll admit I knew it by that name, but not Andalusia. Which I
Yeah,
thought was hilarious.
it goes by a few.
Yeah. And the Muslims defeat a Byzantine army under Theodotus and should have taken the island, but God intervenes again and sends another plague to the Muslim camp.
Let's see, how many plagues were in the Bible? Is this what? It's like 12.
Let's not look too deep
we're,
into it. There's a lot of
we're just
biblical connections.
yeah. We just have some back-to-back plagues. Sanitation is really not a thing right now.
Yeah, no.
This is what is more or less forestalling the takeover. However, before they are, pushed back, they do besiege and take the city of Palermo, which they make their capital in Sicily. Traditionally, powers held by Syracuse, but the Muslims want to rule from Palermo, and they rename it to Al Medina when they make it their capital. And
Where Palermo's on the eastern side, isn't it?
yeah,
That's what
this
I thought.
is going to cause so many fucking problems.
Oh, gee, I can't wait, guys.
Yeah, because Palermo is in eastern Sicily. So I believe I think Syracuse is a little further north. My geography of Sicily is not
Oh
entirely.
no, Syracuse is on the southwestern side or eastern side.
Southeast.
Yeah, no. So Palermo would be
north of it. Let's just
let's find a map real quick, guys. Hold on. Why is my geography?
So Palermo is in northwest Sicily, whereas Syracuse is in southeast.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they take Palermo and they want it as their capital because it's basically the biggest city they can hold reliably at this time. And they rule enough of Sicily at this point that there needs to be an administrative center. Palermo is, Sicily is going to see all sorts of problems arise because it's not the least of which is Syracuse feeling slighted for the next 200 years. With that, we come to the final conquest of Sicily, which takes place from 901 to 956. Because, dear God, is this a marathon? In 901, Sicily begins to be taken over piecemeal with the Muslim takeover of Reggio. Then in 902, Taormina is taken. And then we see the Muslims do what they love to do at this point in history, which is have a domino chain of dynastic changes. As the Fatimid dynasty takes over from the Abbasid dynasty in terms of the caliphate, which in turn sees the Alghabid dynasty replaced.
Oh.
Yay, dominoes.
Yeah, the Alghabid dynasty is replaced, and I did put this in a slightly awkward position for myself, but they are replaced
it says
by the Kalbid dynasty, who received the Emirate of Sicily. Yeah, the Kalbids are appointed emirs of Sicily circa 1950.
1950.
Sorry, 950.
Say, whoa!
I'm doing
Party
a
like
lot of
it's
dates that feel like they should be
950.
missing a 1 just because of how far into the modern era we are.
Party
Fair.
like it's 950.
Yeah, the Caliphate is declared in 948. The Emirate is declared in 948. However, it does not receive full control of Sicily until 965, and really isn't a functioning body until at least 950.
Administration takes a while.
Yeah. It is
the birth of bureaucracy.
Yeah. Oh, it is. As the Caliph Ismaili al-Mansur appoints Hassan al-Kalbi to the position of Emir of Sicily. And it's not till 965, when the Byzantine fortress of Romeda is captured, that they control the entirety of Sicily. However, Rometta is a minor fortress, and the last major resistance is taken out in 950, and the Byzantines kind of just give up. But,
Swift.
to Sicily, someone has to be stubborn.
Fair.
It's not like any Sicilians I know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you know any Sicilians? I'm not Sicilian, Justin.
I know.
I'm not.
What is he smiling about? This is.
I don't know. This is weird.
Anyways, let's continue on.
He looks like a discount Russian nutcracker doll.
Oh no! All right.
Like we're probably gonna figure it out like probably by the end of the episode.
Yeah. It's like no, that might be.
I'm not Sicilian. You're not Sicilian.
We talked earlier about how the mobs are Sicilian.
Oh, it was off camera. Off camera.
Some off-camera jokes are making their way on screen. We apologize to our viewerships profusely. Anyway, so with that speed run aside, we get to the fun part of trying to rule Sicily.
How's that work out for him, Cotton?
It's easy. Come on.
Oh. Well, the Emirate is generally accepted to have lasted from 950 to 1091. Last Byzantine resistance is quelled in 965. But Byzantine treaties with acknowledging Muslim control of the island date to 950, so we're going to run with the 950 date here. The Emirate of Sicily gets its own flag, which is a white crescent moon and a 5-point star centered on a field of green. That's right. They chose green as their field. Most Emirates choose red.
Well.
Is a fun thing. You see it in some of the sort of surviving successor states of the Ottoman Empire, having that red on there. Wait, I'm looking at you, Turkey. But yeah, and they govern from Palermo, which really pisses off Syracuse and the entire eastern half of Sicily. Because Syracuse has been the dominant city on Sicily for the last 1,500 years. Basically, since the Greeks came over and turned it into Magna Graecia. It has been the dominant city, and now it has been supplanted.
Oh. I think that's going to cause some problems.
Yeah, it's sort of like declaring Los Angeles the capital of America. The entire eastern seaboard will hate you.
But it's more culturally relevant than the East Coast. I mean,
but all of England will hate you.
I think you might even get some of the South in there too.
Yeah.
Well, the South hate anything that's not from this.
Yeah.
Everybody hates California.
Yeah. And part of the reason for why Syracuse gets shafted by the Emirate is because Syracuse is the last major city to fall to the Emirates. By the time they take control of Syracuse, they already have a functioning government in Palermo. They have had a functioning government in Palermo for some time. They do not need to relocate just to stoke your ego. That said, the Emirate is actually incredibly prosperous. Palermo becomes one of the largest and wealthiest cities of Europe. It actually becomes the second largest in Europe. It caps out at a population of 350,000 people.
Wow.
Which is second at the time only to Cordoba of Spain with 450,000. Ironically, both of these cities, you might sense a common theme here, are part of Muslim Emirates.
I didn't realize Cordoba had that many people at that time.
No, yeah. It's,
under Muslim control in Spain. The Moors.
Yeah,
I would have thought Baghdad would have gotten that title.
Which city?
Baghdad.
We're talking about cities in Europe.
Oh, right.
Baghdad is not in Europe. Baghdad is most decidedly not European.
Breaking news! The British maps have gotten to Aaron. The Middle East is now considered Europe.
Oh, God. It's been a long
Europe,
day.
The British wouldn't be colonizing it.
It's been a long day for me, guys.
No. So we're talking about cities in Europe. So
Uh,
I want you to think Paris, Lyon, Aachen, Moscow.
uh,
I mean, London at this time is minuscule, maybe
Oh yeah,
10,000 people, if that.
yeah. No, London's Moscow. But yeah,
uh,
and the reason for this is becoming an emirate is a great way to see a massive influx of Muslim immigration. And in addition to that, these emirates usually, once they settle down, have a massive prosperity chain going on account of being linked directly to the Silk Road via a bunch of friendly territories. So there's a lot of economic prosperity and population booms that come with being a newly formed emirate. Uh, that said, it is it is not sort of a Muslim replacement of the I'm going to say indigenous, but basically existing population of Byzantines and Greeks and Italians and Jewish people that are making up the large population of Sicily. In fact, they it's the Emirate of Sicily is a multicultural state, which is relatively rare in Europe at this time. There is a limited religious freedom under what is known as a jizya tax, which is basically because an emirate is a theocracy, it's a religious run state. Anyone who is not a Muslim has to pay a tax affirming their loyalty to the state, because being not a part of the religion in the theocracy, your loyalty cannot be assumed. It has to be proven.
and proven by money.
Yeah, by money. And this is actually incredibly tolerant for the time, because provided you have paid the jizya tax, you can worship freely and openly in Sicily. Any religion. You just pay an extra money to the government every year. This goes over horribly
Oh,
with the Byzantine Christians in the eastern half of the island.
You mean you have to pay tax?
They
you have to pay an extra
religion.
tax.
They have to pay an additional tax, which
Okay, I've heard this. I've heard of this before. I like this is the jizya tax.
Yeah.
I've heard of this one before, but I've never heard anyone specify like how much. Because like, is it like like the tax that they tried in New Jersey, where I'm like pop, where it was 65 cents more or something like that.
They tried that in
Or we
Chicago here, where it was like an extra cent per ounce. So
Yeah.
cases were like $4 more.
Or
Yeah.
is it more of like you pay like an extra, I don't know whatever currency they used, an extra 100 gold or something like that for each year?
Yeah, I do not know what the exact tax was for the jizya, especially in this emirate. It would be something that everyone could afford, because the purpose of the tax is for everyone from the lowest peasant on up to be able to say, yes, I am a loyal member of the state. Even though I am, a non-Muslim living in a Muslim territory. However, the important part of the tax is that, in addition to the whole loss of prestige for Syracuse, it really makes the Eastern Christian population of the island feel very much like second-class citizens. They feel very alienated by this government.
I mean, that tends to happen when there's a theocratic change, especially because people in general don't like changing religions, and when the person in charge of them happens to be from a different religion, there tends to be a little bit of a discrepancy in your
And
viewpoints.
they are technically invaders.
Yep. And the thing too to remember is the Byzantine Empire is also technically a theocracy at this time. They are anointed by the by the Eastern Orthodox Church. They are a divine right monarchy, which means that while they might not be as married to the religion as an emirate, they are there is very much a state religion going on.
Because there are secular and then there are religious laws.
Yeah, and so and there are like the emirate has its own laws and the caliphate has its own laws, but again, those are again separate from the laws of the Quran, which is the Muslim religious doctrine.
Also,
But
it's kind of a way for them to be like, hey, you don't have to pay this tax, but
Just
if you
religion.
convert,
Convert
it's
to our
very-
religion for a tax break.
and it is very hard.
I mean that's
Yeah, it's very hard for the Orthodox Byzantine population on the eastern half of the island to really accept that they are going from being the religious majority and members of the state religion to being not that. There is a lot of ego in the eastern half of the island, and the whole east-west division thing starts flaring up again, which dates back to when Rome and Carthage tried to partition this place.
no, yeah,
Uh,
that was a fun time.
half was Roman, western half was Carthaginian. A lot of people died. That's all we're going to say on that.
The best part about it is it was all a bit of a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Oopsies.
But yeah, the Greek-speaking Christians on the eastern half of the island regularly make life difficult for the Emirate with frequent rebellions.
Honestly, good for them.
And this is going to be one of the things that actually undoes the Emirate, because the Emirate, with its century and a half of rule, is marred by basically constantly having to put down populist rebellions. Which is really unfortunate for them, because they do have a very good thing going here in terms of a lot of reforms, a lot of economic ties, and just a lot of scholastic input. There is a brain drain into Sicily that again comes with being a newly formed emirate.
Yeah, and this carries on even much after, but Sicily was a very even as the center of the Mediterranean, it was also a very important center of education.
Yeah, it begins to become that scholastic center under the Emirate. The Emirate is kind of the beginning of Sicily having a golden age, with a lot of things that happen. It doesn't go into a full golden age under the Emirate because of how difficult domestic rule is. But the Emirate of Sicily it's the final piece in the puzzle almost.
They really put an emphasis on education and teaching, which you kind of see a lot of influence in the areas where they controlled because of that emphasis. And honestly, it's kind of interesting because during this time was kind of the Christian Dark Ages, almost.
Oh, no one likes that word, Justin. It's not a dark age because it was dark.
It's
you just
early
saw a lot.
medieval. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
are we
Early
doing that
medieval.
bullshit again?
These people weren't stupid.
I didn't say that. I just was using common
there's
terminology.
It's
Listen,
bad terminology.
Well, it's not about the people being stupid, Aaron. It's about the general loss of
Science, mathematics,
engineering
education.
knowledge and literature.
Yeah.
I mean,
That is
population decline happened really fast. It was not their fault.
not to mention the entire center of government collapsed overnight.
I'm just saying they kept education and academia alive, and they let it thrive.
Aaron, you do have to acknowledge that most of what we have from before the Renaissance, we have because the Arabic world didn't implode.
Oh,
including medicine.
No, I definitely know. I definitely acknowledge that. I just don't like the connotations that come with saying, because it's not like this, because it creates this image of the fact that Europe suddenly was backwards, stupid, and dirty, while in the East, in the Muslim world, was very sophisticated, because it's more nuanced than that. But when you use terms like Dark Ages, it very much discounts the other advances that were in fact happening in Europe.
Yeah, and just the issue is that Europe suffered a major setback in terms of what it had access to.
Not to mention, it's also a Victorian term, and they're not usually the nicest when it comes to historical nuances.
You remind me of my first supervisor having a conniption over whether it's late or terminal woodlands.
Anyways, let's continue on.
We are debating things that do not need to be debated here.
Yes, the point is
Yeah,
the caliphate's
that
focused on education, and that thrived in the world.
the Emirates are seeing a lot of things, are seeing this sort of kind of become a forefront again for Sicily, because Sicily has been for the last, for the last 150 years prior to being taken over. They've been on the periphery of the Byzantine Empire, not really getting a lot of attention, but also being able to do their own thing. And they're kind of left behind by the Byzantines, unfortunately, just by virtue of the geopolitical situation in Constantinople. With the Emirate of Sicily, suddenly they're a capital not of a province, but of their own nation. Granted, it's an Islamic nation, and that's not what most of the population is, but still, it's at least a Sicilian nation. During the 10th century, so the 900s, the Emirate is incredibly strong militaristically. They launch regular raids into Byzantine Italy, and they even defeat a army sent by the Holy Roman Empire. In 982, they defeat Otto II in the Battle of Crotone, which sees basically the Holy Romans and the Germanic influence kind of stop halfway down Italy. They don't go into southern Italy very much after this. So, southern Italy actually ends up being divided between the Lombards and the Byzantines because of how badly the Emirate of Sicily beats up the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah.
It's not until the 13th century that Germanic influence, aside from the Lombards, gets into southern Italy, and that's dynastic marriages with the Normans. But
spoilers.
Yeah, they basically put a 300-year delay on the German march down the peninsula with these fights. The Emirate does invest quite heavily in Palermo and in Sicily. And this is where we're going to get our first talk about architecture to compare what the Emirate does to what happens post-Emirate. So the Emirate builds the Chapel of San Cataldo in Palermo. It's a Muslim mosque that was then converted into a Christian church. It's a small rectangular chapel that features 3 red domes and Arabic arches. And what this is it's a relatively modest building, but it shows that the Emirate is importing a lot of Muslim and Arabic styles into Sicily at this time. Arabic arches, unlike Roman arches, aren't a sort of perfect little half circle type arch. They actually are more turnip or onion shaped, where they come to a point at the top, giving them a unique sort of aesthetic flair. Additionally, the 3 domes, the sort of domed top, not unseen before in Sicily and Italy, is definitely a new style. They put in these domes. It's this modest, and it's the sign of modest buildings that are still investing in building a new society here. And that's kind of the hallmark of the Emirate. It does a lot of, small things that have a big impact. Like this, for example, this church has stood for over 1,000 years at this point.
It's a very beautiful church.
Yeah, it's a beautiful little building. There's not really a lot to describe here.
I mean, it's a very brownish, kind of grayish building. Like you said, it's a square, and then it's got the 3 domes in a line, and they're kind of a reddish brick. And honestly, it kind of looks like as much as I hate to say it, almost like a whack-a-mole.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's very plain stone. It's very modest architecture.
It's meant not to be flashy.
Yeah, and the Emirate is investing. It's a sign that the Emirate is investing pragmatically. Most of their attention actually goes to land reform and export crops.
That's fair.
They actually spend a lot of time being agrarian rather than grandiose, and so
I mean, Sicily was once the breadbasket for the Roman Empire, so it makes sense.
Yeah, got supplanted by Egypt, but yeah, Sicily was a breadbasket. And fun fact, the Sicilian agrarian system has not been changed since the Roman Republic.
I don't blame him. If
The
it ain't broke.
the emirate is the first thing to change the agrarian system. We'll get into how they do that later, because what they do to the agrarian system is actually one of the big legacies of this emirate, as opposed to the architecture.
And does it maintain to this day?
A lot of the crops Sicily is known for today are imported by the Emirates.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, if we want to talk about those now, we can talk about those now because they do come up.
I mean, sure.
So the Emirate is known for introducing oranges, lemons, pistachios, and sugar to the island of Sicily.
Really? I've seen those.
If you cook anything Sicilian, you will know that you need those.
I didn't hit Sicily, but I did hit southern Italy when I was there in Italy, and even seeing the oranges that were growing, that this hotel was growing themselves, absurdly big.
Yeah, no, you can get lemons the size of a human head.
It's insane. So like,
I need one. I'll
like,
just stick a straw on the side.
You'll need one of the metal straws is what you'll need.
There's some god tier citrus that comes out of Sicily, and it's because of this emirate.
Like if you threw one, like it already hurt. Like if you threw an orange at somebody, it would hurt. If you threw an orange from southern Italy at somebody, you could probably substitute it as like a cannonball in a cannon.
Why are you throwing citrus?
I don't know Aaron's obsession with fruit-based violence. Stop playing Fruit Ninja.
Never. I haven't changed since 2009.
Yeah.
Still playing Fruit Ninja.
Oh, no.
And on the subject of land, they also reworked all the land division because the agriculture of Sicily is these large Roman estates. When the emirate takes over, and they say that's not particularly efficient, especially for all these new crops we want you to grow. So they take the land and redivide it into small farms. Another great way to piss off the existing powers that be in Syracuse.
Oh, what you're telling me is they seized the means of production and redistributed it to the people.
Land reform.
Funny enough, that's the one thing that also originally pissed off a bunch of Romans. That led inevitably to the rise of Sulla and eventually Caesar. Yep. Who knew that an elite didn't like giving up their land in order to redistribute it?
Listen, redistribution of land got 2 Roman consuls killed. Just look at the Gracchi brothers.
Yeah.
But back on track. Additionally, because the agricultural system hasn't been evaluated since the Roman Republic, it also means that they've missed out on all the technological advances. So guess what the emirate does? It introduces irrigation.
Water.
Sicily was farming without irrigation until the late 10th century.
Hold on a second.
Irrigation systems
and it
have
was
been
Rome's
around for almost 1,000 years.
And it was Rome's breadbasket, so it was able to claim that at least for a while without irrigation.
Yeah, because and the reason why it doesn't get invested in by the Romans when the Romans start doing their whole thing for irrigation is because from about the 200s to the late, to about 30 BCE, Sicily's Rome's breadbasket. However, in 31 BCE, it gets supplanted by Egypt with the Roman conquest. And everyone stops paying attention to grain from Sicily. So it's stuck with, a 1100 year out of date system. And then the emirate comes along and says, yeah, no. So very much major agricultural and land reforms for the emirate. Very big deal. And so you might be thinking, things are going fairly well for the emirate, right? They've got major new crops, new land systems. They're building. They are a military powerhouse. The only problem is, 2/3 of their population hates them. Well, the emirate, not to be outdone by anyone, decides that the only thing that shall destroy it is itself.
Yay!
And the royal family begins to fight quite heavily with its own with its own self. The Kalbid dynasty stops getting along at about the year 1035. There's just a formal schism within the dynasty. What happens is a man named Abd Allah Abu Hafs seizes power for himself. And by 1037, Abd Allah has usurped the emirate from Ahmed al-Akar II, or al-Akal II, sorry. This marks the second time a usurper has sat on the throne for the Emirate of Sicily. The first time, the guy lasted less than a year and was immediately killed. Yeah, don't assassinate to jump the line of succession.
Doesn't it just kind of sets a precedent?
Yeah.
That's a bad example for the next
That's
guy.
a bad example. Anyway, however, this time around, the Kalbid dynasty isn't able to quite get a handle on it, because not only does Abdallah seize the throne, not only does he assassinate the ruling emir, he also holds it for 5 years. And by the time Hassan al-Samson II restores the Kalbid dynasty in 1040, the Kalbid dynasty is so fractured that no one can hold it together. In 1044, the Kalbid dynasty disintegrates entirely, with Hassan II still ruling until 1053. But there is no functioning dynasty. Instead, what we get is what are known as quadets, which are the 4 governing sections that were put in place by the emirate to rule Sicily, more or less each having their own ruler. At most, 2 quadets answer to 1 person at any given time, which causes a lot of problems. This lays the ground for invasion, as Syracuse and the entire eastern half of the island see their chance at freedom and immediately start rebelling again.
Classic.
By the year 1060, things have gotten so bad that there are 3 emirs of Sicily.
Oh, wow.
Operating at the same time.
You're the 3 emirs, huh?
Yep, the 3 emirs. They are not friendly.
That decade feels like it's quite important, and I can't quite put my fingy on it.
Yeah.
I feel like nothing ever important happened in the 1060s.
Yeah. Nothing.
Hey, what's
nothing
William doing in England?
He's not there yet. He's still in France. He's still in Normandy.
Nothing to worry about yet.
I said the decade.
Yeah, and what happens is the Holy Roman Empire begins to encroach on holdings that the Emirate of Sicily has claimed in Italy. They lose all of that almost instantly. And the ruling dynasty basically becomes so weak that it forces itself to, in order to maintain power, it starts making bargains for like financial and military support with the Byzantine Empire.
Oof.
Which prompts other branches of the family to seek out the Syrids, which is the ruling group in Algeria, which is Muslim at this time, to back them because, hey, we may not be doing well, but we can agree we don't want the Byzantines back in central Mediterranean.
And
this
then
goes on for a little bit of time until the local rulers and the Pope invite the Normans to join. Man,
I wonder if they're going to do anything interesting.
The Normans?
Yeah. So the Normans were a group of Viking raiders that got paid by the King of France to settle in Normandy and basically guard the mouth of the rivers leading to France in return for, not setting Paris on fire every other week. The Normans in Italy are known as the Normans of Apulia. These are the ones that said no to that deal or got bored very quickly afterwards and went to Italy, where they basically got paid by anyone and everyone to beat the shit out of everyone else. And they formed the Duchy of Apulia out of all the money and land they got.
Nice.
They were just really good at it.
Mercenaries for hire. They're just like, oh, we're bored. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
There's like, well, I don't want to stay here. I don't like France. They eat snails. I hear the Mediterranean's nice. They
Yeah.
grow oranges.
And at this
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
William was looking across the channel, going,
Yeah.
Did you
Oh yeah.
say
Yeah. Yeah.
adventure?
10, yeah. The late 11th century is the time of the Normans. Um, it gets worse. So the Normans have the Christian uprisings for popular support. The Pope himself, Pope Nicholas II, um, green lights the Normans to invade Sicily in 1061 because basically a Norman kingdom in Sicily is better for the Catholic Church than either an Orthodox Byzantine holding or a Muslim emirate. So there's absolutely no downside for the Pope telling these, mercenaries to basically, yeah, I'll let you be king of Sicily if you take it from the heathens.
yeah, because
Wait,
he's like, at least they're Christian.
he's like, no, no. Specifically, they're Catholic.
Yeah, Norman. Yeah, yeah. The Normans of Apulia are Catholic.
There's like, wait a minute. So you want us to go in, kill some Muslims and some Byzantines
Yeah,
who are also Christian, but the wrong kind, and we just get a whole kingdom? And Pope's just like, yeah, because they're not Catholic.
yeah. Now the Normans make you know, you know, they make their invasion of Sicily and they will overrun the Emirate of Sicily. They will wipe out Muslim Calabria, Muslim Sicily, and Muslim Malta.
Everybody forgets Malta.
Yeah, they will wipe it out under a man named Robert Guiscard.
Yeah.
However,
God damn it, Robert.
the rival of the Normans is not the end of the book for the Emirate of Sicily because one man in 1065 unites the fighting Muslim quadrants of Sicily to make a valiant, unified emirate once more, resurgent and strong for all of 3 years.
3 years.
This man is Ayyubid ibn Tamim, and he unites them from 1065 to 1068, at which point he promptly leaves Sicily back to North Africa, and immediately there's a succession crisis, and the Muslim Emirates falls into infighting.
Gotta watch out for those succession crises, man.
Yeah, basically everyone had kind of agreed that he could be in charge. However, there was no real agreement for who could rule in his absence. So when he leaves for North Africa, everyone starts killing each other again.
Just because he's not physically here doesn't mean he's actually ruler. So
Yeah,
it's like when King John took over the throne while Richard was crusading.
Yeah, it's things like that. And basically, what ends up happening is the equivalent of like the governor of Virginia telling the governor of New York what to do, and the governor of New York saying, "You're the same rank as me, fuck off." And then Georgia sending Virginia and Georgia sending armies to invade New York.
Oh, that definitely would not have gone well. Actually,
Yeah,
it didn't go well.
that's basically what is happening, and I am not making any parallels whatsoever. I don't have a stake in this. But anyway,
They lost the war.
the Normans establish a bridgehead at Messina, which is on the northeastern tip of the island. And they take Palermo in 1072, depriving the emirate of its capital. However, the emirate limps on as there is there is still a chance for the Emirate of Sicily to survive. They can still fight on because by this point, you've wiped out most of the quadets, so there's not a lot of people for them to fight among themselves with. And there's a man who is known to the Christians as Benevert. His actual name is Ibn Abad. And in 1072, when Palermo falls, he is the last meaningful Muslim claimant to the emirate. He is the last meaningful Islamic ruler of Sicily. He is the last force that could potentially drive back the Normans and restore the emirate. he is taken out in 1086.
Oof.
But for 14 years, he holds them back.
Wow.
His little corner of the island.
He held the line.
Yep. He is succeeded by Yusuf ibn Abdallah, who is himself defeated in 1091, and just like the taking of the Byzantine fortress of Romeda in 965, Yusuf never stood a chance. He was just like the last lord of the last town,
the last
to
bastion.
surrender. Yeah, yeah. He's the last last man standing. And
history doesn't repeat itself, but sure as hell rhymes.
Yeah. And by this point, in 1091, the Normans have conquered the Emirate. The Emirate is gone. However, the Emirate really gets a post-mortem glow-up under the Normans. And that's actually where a lot of the impact of the Emirate can be most well seen, is under the Normans. Because the Normans, they're new to this kingdom thing. So they are more than happy to take what is working for everyone else and adopt it to themselves.
Naturally.
Again, if it ain't broke,
it's a yoink and twist. You yoink the idea and you put your own twist to it.
Yeah. Now, for one thing, they allow the Muslims to remain on Sicily. The Muslims actually remained the largest demographic on the island until the 13th century.
Wow.
Because in the 13th century, an ultimatum is put forth for convert, die, or leave. However, by this point, the Norman Hauteville dynasty has been taken over by the German Hohenstaufens due to some rather poor diplomatic marriages into the Holy Roman Empire.
Oh, God, yep, that'll get you.
And so the Holy Roman Empire basically seizes the Kingdom of Sicily, or the County of Sicily, as it is called, and decides that it's going to create a pure religious state here. However, between the 13th century and the 11th, the Normans carry on with the with what the Emirate was doing. The Emirate did all those land reforms. The Normans maintain it. Additionally, the Emirate is the final key ingredient in what would become known as Arab Norman or Arab Norman Byzantine culture. And what that effectively is the Normans come to Sicily and they see beautiful Byzantine architecture, stunning Muslim buildings, even though they are Muslim ones are probably the most modest, and wonderful Roman ruins. And they look at all of this and they realize, if you take a Byzantine building, put Roman columns and Muslim arches on it, it looks better than anything else that has ever come before.
Oh,
so
no.
They take cultural fusion one step further and give the Emirate of Sicily new life in making some of the most awe-inspiring buildings that will grace Sicily until about 600 years later.
Not the architects. No, not the architects.
The architects. Yep.
Yes.
Engineers everywhere are crumbling.
Yeah.
Good. Let them.
Yep. And and that is what they began. It's the most complex and well-adorned architecture in Sicily does date to this time. There is one other time when Sicily does get a major architectural overhaul under the Spanish following a massive earthquake. And it's a beautifully Baroque part of Sicily that is like that. However, this itself is the testament to cultural fusion, is the Norman post-Emirate. And they really do breathe life back into the the Emirate's legacy on the island.
They even can, as far if I remember correctly, too, the Norman, like you said, up until the Germans, the Normans still very much were patrons of science and scholarlyship in the island. Not also, if I remember correctly, there was also a king. Now, granted, science used loosely. They're not exactly using the scientific formula. They're not exactly always being too um,
Y equals
practical with
mx
it.
plus b.
But there is, I do remember a specific story about one of the kings wanting to learn what the language of Adam and Eve was. Was it Hebrew? Was it Aramaic? Was it Arab? Was it Latin? And funny enough, he got results, just not the ones he was expecting, because it turns out babies need nurturing. And
Yeah.
because he would, the only time these babies were fed, or at least were given attention, is when they were fed. Other than that, they were left alone, and he thought they would develop, they would speak the language of Adam and Eve because there was no outside influence of, so they weren't taught to. But and that's when you learn that babies need nurturing and love.
Yeah, I don't know about that particular experiment, but I do know that there was, in addition to the architecture, which we'll come back to in a minute, there was a scholastic renaissance under the Normans. The Normans kept the Emirate very much close to them. They constantly imported Muslim scholars. In fact, everyone in the Norman court, in addition to speaking, Greek and Latin and all the, the European languages, also had to speak Arabic because Arabic mathematicians were present at court, and they even commissioned the most an Arabic map maker to make the most detailed map of the world to date. Uh, and he published a detailed piece by piece explanation of everything on that map of the world in his own encyclopedia, which he wrote in both Latin and Arabic.
That's got to be hard to do.
Yeah. He spent 15 years on it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That was commissioned by the Normans. And that I actually do have the name of that work. It is the Assizes of Ariano, I believe.
So now for H.H. Reads, you need to read it in both languages.
Yeah. Either that or that was one of the law code reforms. There was a lot of literature that came up when the Normans take over and basically decide to just patronize the ever-loving hell out of any scholarship they find.
Listen, they still had all that money left over from all the mercenary work, and they're like, well, what do we do with it?
Yeah.
These guys are doing some cool stuff. Let's pay them to make cooler stuff.
Yeah, basically. And the thing is, everyone in the court spoke and read Latin. They spoke and read Greek. They spoke and read Arabic. They spoke and read German. They spoke and read, an early form of Italian, because that is what the people there spoke in their kingdom. And that is what they did. And it was very polyglot. And it's, without the Emirate, there wouldn't be a lot of this scholastic influence. There certainly wouldn't be Arabic involved. And it certainly wouldn't see some wonderful bits of architecture like the one we've selected to look at is the Capella Palatina, which is the royal palace of Palermo. And it takes a little bit of everything. It takes Corinthian columns from the Roman Empire, which are these pillars that end in a sort of floral pattern resembling leaves. It takes Arabic arches, which are those sort of turnip-shaped arches that come to a point at the top. It imports Arabic makarnas, which are these sort of ceiling vault things that create a sort of geometric honeycomb pattern, which basically allows you to look up at a ceiling and have sort of a feeling that you are in a cave a lot of times, with how the geometry works, and creates little just sort of dangling stalactites, I believe, are the ones that come down.
I think so.
Yeah, creates little dangling stalactites from the ceiling, which can be beautifully decorated. It has inscriptions in Greek, Latin, and Arabic. It has Byzantine mosaics adorning all the walls and even the ceilings. And it uses the basilica, which is a Catholic cross format, for its layout. The Normans just build this, and it's basically the best of everything. And there's very heavy Arabic influence on this, which wouldn't be there without the Emirate of Sicily. So even though the Emirate remains modest, like we saw when we were talking about the Chapel of San Cataldo, the people that come after, because they're not necessarily dealing with a lot of domestic strife, and because they're not fighting, themselves for most of their rule, are actually able to just adorn Sicily with all the riches that come in, as opposed to having to be pragmatic about it, like the Emirate was. And that's most of the Emirate of Sicily is their legacy is in what the Normans do with them after they're gone, which is kind of interesting. Is that the most visible memorial of them is the invading successor state.
I mean, that's usually how it goes, though, because in their time, realistically, a century isn't that much for things to really take root. And you're kind of seeing that flourish at this point, where you're seeing that full cultural integration by the time their successor state had already stepped in. It is cool to see the fusion in the architecture, though, because that's truly how you do see innovation, is you see combinations of a bunch of different outside factors coming together to create something brand new. I do really enjoy that.
Yeah, and the thing also to keep in mind is at the time the Normans are honoring this sort of Islamic influence and importing Muslim teachers for their kings and things like that. There's the Crusades going on.
Yeah, that's really awkward.
Because the Normans rule from the late 11th century to the mid 13th century, so they've got a little over a century and a half, just like the Emirate did, to rule, and they're ruling during a time of religious strife and basically saying, yeah, we're ignoring that.
Yeah, medieval Spain had a similar kind of stance. They're just like, what's this crusading business all about? And went back to their books.
Yeah, and one of the things with it is just, the Normans could have very easily chosen to go along with their neighbor, the Pope, and with most of Europe, and said, oh, Muslim thing exists, destroy it and suppress it. That could have very easily been their response, and then the Emirate of Sicily wouldn't have such a visible and vibrant legacy. The art and architecture we see in Sicily would not be nearly as, beautiful as it is today, because a lot of Arabic elements are incorporated. And it's just, it's one of the things, like, they could have chose to pull a Rome and Carthage scenario and attempt to destroy any memory that this thing ever existed. And instead, they chose to set themselves up as the heir of the Emirate, as the successor state, while simultaneously being the, invading, champion.
I think the part that made that slightly easier, though, is the fact that they are Normans, in that they aren't truly native to that area either. They are kind of coming in as outsiders, so they're not too far removed from the Emirate.
I would also like to point out,
they're not invested in the local politics. They're a liberating conqueror either way.
Yeah,
and also at this point, Sicily had become very multicultural, so a lot of the peoples did eventually have to learn how to live with each other to some degree, and eventually with the Normans just became another yoke to put around the peasantry.
But by the time the Hohenstaufens get involved, it's been about 300 years. It's been about 300 years. Technically, the Muslims have been on the island since 828. So it had been about 500 years of having Islamic influence somewhere in Sicily.
Yeah.
At that point, it's just Sicily.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much the Hohenstaufens try to make it not.
True.
And also, I just want to say one more time, Hohenstaufen. Who the hell named you?
The Germans, clearly.
Well, I don't know if they'd be called German then.
Well, they're Holy Romans. They're Germanic. Technically, you get to call the Lombards Germanic, even though they're just chilling in Italy for most of this.
Still, unfortunate naming.
Yeah, it's just like, it just feels bad because just how terrible the Hohenstaufens were to an entire demographic and undoing like the last 300 years of change.
Yeah, the
and also
Germans
the fact
aren't...
that their name is Hohenstaufen, and it's hard not to laugh in English.
The Germanic people really don't have the best track record.
It's like
God damn it.
But at least like the Austrian dynasty was like it sounds intimidating. Habsburg.
And they
Right.
actually had the skill to back it up for a long time.
Yeah, but it's like Hohenstaufen. It's just like
Hohenstaufen.
this, just like that name it just doesn't feel the power of.
There's got to be like a
few.
few silent letters in there that like just aren't said. Like there's no way it actually sounds like that.
I am reading it as it is written to the best of my ability.
Well, if we have any German speakers that listen to this or watch this on YouTube, please let us know in the comments down below and on Column's mental breakdown. I think that's a great point for us to wrap up today's podcast episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like down below, and we will see you guys in the next video.
I want to know if somebody could like verify the king thing that I was talking about earlier in the comments.
I doubt it.